Hello and welcome to the Surviving to Thriving podcast series. I'm your host, Casey Miller. So the purpose of this podcast is to provide you with the knowledge that you need to become the CEO of your health and become the best version of yourself. I really, truly believe this. The top 3 things that you could ever invest in your life are going to be your health, who you surround yourself with, and acquiring more knowledge. If you continuously pour into these 3 cups, I promise you, your life will change dramatically for the better. Now, luckily, this podcast will pour into your health and knowledge. But if you want to surround yourself with like-minded people who will push you to win, go ahead and join our Surviving to Thriving community. We'd love to have you. The link is going to be below in the description. Before we get into our episode, I want to take a quick second to thank our sponsor, Legion Athletics. I've been in the game for a long time, and it's really hard to find supplements that you can trust while also tasting great. I believe Legion is a perfect mixture of the two. They're backed by science. Everything is clearly labeled on the bottle. And from my own personal experience, everything does really do taste really great. So if you want to get your own Legion supplements, use the code THRIVINGON, one word, to get 20% off your first order and double reward points. Now, without further ado, let's get into the episode. Hello and welcome back to another episode. Today, I have the pleasure to have one of my best friends on this episode, Jared Hamilton. Jared Hamilton and I, how long have you been best friends for?
I have no sense of time. I have no idea. Like at least a couple years now.
Yeah. Well, Jared is a fellow fitness and nutrition professional, but he has a really, really dope expertise that is not seen a lot in the fitness industry, and that's fixing people's relationship with food so that way they can get results for life. And I will definitely say this, Jared is one of the best in the industry by far. He's phenomenal at what he does. We actually use one of his trainings to train our coaches within Thriving On as well. He was nice enough to
I forgot
give me
about that.
Yeah, remember? And that's been a game changer. And so I decided to have him on because if you guys know anything about me or Thriving On, relationship with food is definitely a huge thing, especially after struggling with an eating disorder majority of my life. So I figured I'd have one of the experts come on in and share his knowledge and listen to us bullshit back and forth, because we typically do that. So we have an idea of what we're going to be talking about, but it may go a whole different road. So we'll see how this goes, but it'll be fun either way. But Jared, can we take a second for you to introduce yourself to everybody here that doesn't know who you are?
Yeah, totally. So, with me and my stuff, like at the end of the day, I fell into this all on an accident, ironically. Like if we rewind about a decade ago, like I've been doing this for like, I don't know, 10 or 12 years. And I started off thinking I was going to be a physical therapist. So I was doing the traditional school route for that, found out I didn't want to be a physical therapist. And then one thing led to another, and then I found personal training during school, and I fell in love with personal training, ended up ditching the physical therapy direction, went all in on being a personal trainer, ended up working for like 3 different gyms, building my independent personal training business, and I thought I was going to be a trainer till the day I died. I loved it, loved running my own thing. I was super busy. Like I became the local guy, right? Like that guy, like in my small town. And then I ran that for several years, and then that started becoming heavy, and I was literally doing 438 and 9P. So like it kind of sucked. But I got some crazy skill sets. Like I would not trade that for anything in the world. A lot of online coaches now have never coached a person in person. And so like, I consider that kind of like a little superpower that I did it for like 5 or 6 years, and then, and built a whole like 200 session a month kind of business. And then, when I decided I wanted to get into the online space to be able to have more scheduling free time and to also be able to help more people, I hired a mentor right out of the gate, started posting content, started doing this online coaching thing. It was dope. And then one thing led to another. I did that for several years, just teaching like what I would call sustainable weight loss, right? Like, hey, here's how to like not be a psycho around food, eat your favorite foods, look good naked. Like, let's not make this crazy. Work out as little as possible, just sustainable fat loss, like pretty chill. And then, and then that for a while got to the point where that was becoming heavy. Like, I think one of the things that as we evolve and grow is like the old things started to become heavy. It doesn't serve us anymore, and we have to adapt or level up or whatever. I mean, that's a whole life lesson of itself. And then, so I dove into that world. Like, well, why does this feel heavy? What feels like, what direction do you think I should go? Like talking to myself about this. And the whole time I'd been huge into personal development, psychology, and all the stuff. But I saw there's a gap that was missing, because in my head, I saw like over here on one side, like diet culture, fitnessy diet nonsense, all that stuff. And then the extreme side of it. Right. But then on the other side, all the other stuff that I was so fascinated by, like psychology, human behavior, personal development, how your brain works, neural processes, and all that. And I'm like, man, I just feel like there should be a world where both of these come together, because I started to see a pattern within our clients where we couldn't do the fat loss stuff until we fixed what I call their inner game. Whereas I could set up the best plan in the world, the best macros, hormones, workouts, the whole 9 yards, but relationships with food were trash, causing them to binge eat, or let's say identity issues causing them to subconsciously sabotage, or whatever the case is, and all these things that happen. So I built a system around all of this where we fix what I call I diet you from the inside out, where we fix you first mentally and emotionally while we're in this process. And then that's going to allow the actual fat lossy stuff, macros and workouts and all that stuff, what I labeled the surface level stuff, as like those are actually going to stick. So that's when I created this like magic formula to make that all work cohesively. So that's kind of my dating profile, if you will.
Yeah, definitely. But not only that, you're a very successful podcaster. I like to call him social media famous. I got famous best friend. Right. So, what's the name of your podcast again? What is it?
My podcast is Dieting from the Inside Out. Everything I do is all about the whole dieting from the inside out stuff. But here's the thing, though. Being like social media famous is not the same as normal famous. Like being a TikToker is not a badge of honor. You know what I mean?
Okay, but you've had people stop you in like airports and like cry to you and how much you've changed their lives. So that's pretty dope. That's
pretty cool. But like saying, yeah, I've got a big following on TikTok is not quite the same as like, oh yeah, I did a movie with The Rock. That's not like the same. So.
That'd be pretty freaking dope though. Yeah. But you've had some pretty good names coming on your podcast too. I know some of my favorites, Mind Pump Media, some of them came on. A lot of other big names coming on. I've seen that blow up in the past couple years since I first met you.
Yeah, I'm all about like where someone can do is say no. So like, so I will shoot my shot with anyone who like I want to get on the show. Mm-hmm. And don't get me wrong, I've had like some of my favorite authors I went on be like, no, you're not big enough, and I'm like, okay, that's fine. Meanwhile, I've had heroes of mine say yes, and then now we're super close. So it's like. You know, you lose all the shots you don't take, and it's pretty crazy. So yeah, the podcast is fun.
Yeah, definitely. If you guys have not listened to his podcast, I highly suggest it. Again, it's Dieting from the Inside Out. A lot of really great content. I a lot of times listen in it too and learn a lot from Jared.
You've been on it.
I've been on it a couple of times. No, once.
Yeah,
it was once.
Once. Yeah, you've been on it.
So, and it's a lot of fun. It's a really great listen. But Jared, I want to ask you a question. So obviously, like I said before, you're pretty much the expert in the field to solve people's relationship with food issues, right? And in the inner game stuff as well, like identity issues too. So I wanted to ask you, like, what are the biggest things that you see through the years of coaching, the hundreds of people that you've helped? What are the commonalities amongst the people? Like, what are they doing wrong that causes the poor relationship with food, the poor inner game stuff that you see?
Meanings, behaviors, and beliefs are the three big ones. Okay. Because we can break those down, because think about, like, I view a relationship with food very similarly as a relationship with a person, because if you have baggage around your relationship with food, let's say mommy and daddy didn't, let's say they got you damn near on an eating disorder, or mom didn't do very well, so you just followed mom's footsteps because she put you on Weight Watchers at 9, or whatever the case is, forget the reasons, like you have all these issues and baggage around food. But the hard part with food is we can't just like say, oh, get the trigger foods out of the house or the bad foods out of the house, because those have its own issues, because meanings, again, we'll get into that, but you have to eat to live. So like, it's not like, oh, I have a bad relationship with cocaine. Okay. You probably just shouldn't have cocaine. Like you should just get that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But with food, it makes it complicated because it's tied to everything. So if you have a bad relationship with food, that's going to cause you to have anxiety, guilt, stress, overwhelm around it. It's going to make fat loss a fucking nightmare, because you have to be in that cool calorie deficit thing to lose weight. But then you also have food in every area of your social life: kids, birthday, date night, travel, work, celebrations, boredom. Like friends, like my one of my best friends is coming into town today at the time of recording. We are going to go get food. Like it's so this is why it makes it complicated, where food is not black and white. That's why I hate it when fitness assholes say like, oh, food is just fuel. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me?
Yep.
That's like saying your house is just shelter from the storm. It's like, no, your house is more than a structure to keep you from getting wet in the rain. Like it's so many more things. It's where you raise your kids. It's where you're like mini sanctuary. It's where you feel safe. It's where all the things, you know what I mean? Like no one's putting Christmas trees in the shelter house at the park, but like downstairs we have our Christmas tree. My house looks like Santa threw up on it. It's because this is our home. Same, but food's the same way. It has all these different facets in our life. So to just give a cheap answer of like, oh, food is just fuel, it's doing a disservice to everyone. So, but at the end of the day, if I had to make like a checklist with fixing your relationship with food, is we need to change your meanings, your beliefs, and your actions. And they're all intertwined with each other. Because you can say all the things that you want about food, have great meanings, have great beliefs, but if your actions don't change, that's what actually speaks true and solidifies things in your subconscious. Just like with your relationship with a person, I can tell my wife I love her. I can send her gifts. I can like talk all the talk, but if I abuse her, none of that matters, right? You have to have all three of this little trifecta, because neuroscience teaches us that the body is arguably the unconscious mind. It's why your physiology can start to change your psychology. So you can say all the things around food you want. You can have the meanings around the food. You can say, oh, I believe no food is bad. But if you are still avoiding cookies like the plague, or if you are still feel like it, like, and your actions are not conducive, it's not going to change it from a psychological perspective. But the thing is, it's not just a clear-cut thing. This is to wrap it back around. Your relationship with food is like a relationship with a person. If it has baggage, avoidance makes it worse, and you have to have boundaries around it and a systematic approach to fixing it. If Casey and I are not okay, if we have, let's say I offended Casey, and let's say I said something or I did something stupid, and now we have a issue in our relationship, us not talking is going to make that issue worse. Us avoiding the conflict, avoiding the elephant in the room will make things worse. It's not going to get our relationship better and our friendship better. But let's say let's say I take advantage of her. Let's say I like have some really bad character traits. Casey, but we'll say we want to fix our friendship. If we had an issue, Casey would need to put in to address the issue, be like, hey, this is a problem. And then put boundaries in place around. It's like, hey, Jared, you're too negative all the time. Like all you do is bring me down. So like, I'm happy to talk with you and be friends, but like, you can't be just bitching to me all day. Right. She would have to say, all right, I want to address this problem, but here's the boundaries around the relationship. It's no different with food. Too often people have it. Let's say they struggle with binge eating because they like restrict or they undereat or whatever. And they're like, oh, I'm just going to get the trigger foods out of the house. Well, that's like me saying, oh, well, Casey and I just are never going to be friends again. That doesn't work. You need to go, oh, wow, I have an issue around this. So how do we need to go about resolving it? Which means we need to have boundaries around it. So for our clients, this is where we're like, cool, well, you can't be controlled around chips. So if we get rid of chips, that doesn't fix the problem. We need to have chips in a controlled fashion that retrains your brain that chips are okay. So then we might have the client, like, let's say, go get a vending machine sized bag of chips every day. It's 160 calories. And then they have that every single day, they'll start to lose weight and they're going to start to mend that relationship with the chips, for example. Right. So this is why it's messy. It's not just get the trigger foods out of the house kind of thing. So, but for those three big areas specifically, you have to change your beliefs around food. If you believe like sugar actually stores fat, or if you believe that, half the bullshit that you see in diet culture, like good food, bad food, I need to be strict and rigid and all this stuff, you need to change your beliefs around it. Otherwise, like if someone taught your kid 2 + 2 is 17, it's not their fault that they're struggling. They have the wrong information. Most of you who have a bad relationship with food have wrong information. You think carbs actually store fat. You actually think you look at bread and your body somehow stores fat. So you need to change your beliefs around the food. Second of all, you need to change the meanings you have around food. A lot of the times our attitude and mentality around food is bad. It's almost like if a kid was going into a math test and he's like, I'm going to fail, he's really going to fail because his attitude and his meanings are already fucked. But most people going and approaching food, they're like, oh, I look at bread and I store fat, or, oh, I can't have, I eat more than 1,200 calories or I gain weight. It's like, no, that attitude alone and that the meanings you're taking away from that is setting you up for failure completely. So if you think like in your head, if you have the meanings of these foods are good, these foods are bad, these are fat storing, these are fat burning, these are my normal life foods, these are my diet foods, the meanings you're attaching is the problem. If you look at broccoli like it's morally superior and look at brownies like it's from Satan, then like your meanings are causing the problems. again, if with my wife, if I like, let's say I just called her a bitch instead of using her name or like calling her baby or sweetheart, if I just said bitch, hey bitch, will you make me a sandwich? Hey bitch, how was your day? Like that verbiage and meaning alone would affect the relationship. So it's no different for you who are struggling with your relationship with food, calling food good, bad, diet food, cheat day, trigger food. That's causing half the issue. And then the final piece of the trifecta is your behavior around food, because avoidance never made anything better. If your relationship with food is hurt and it has problems, you now have to change your relation or your actions around food, because you can say the meanings, say the beliefs all you want, but it does not solidify until your actions take place, which means you need to go out of your way and put into your program eating the foods that you struggle with in moderation and retraining your brain that it's okay. Mm-hmm. And then as you heal with this and as the relationship with food gets better, you can slowly drop the boundaries. Instead of going all or nothing, it's like lots of boundaries around food. Well, now we're going to have a little bit less boundaries around food. Then before you know it, you're like, I don't have any boundaries other than like, I don't eat like an asshole. And then you're pretty free at that point.
Yeah.
It's like the Jared crash course. So
yeah. I want to go back to something that you were talking about before that was really interesting. You were talking about how a relationship with food is like having a relationship with a person. But most people, when they're having a poor relationship with food, they go straight to avoidance and almost catastrophizing things, like you're talking about before, attaching certain meanings to certain things. That sounds a lot like people in relationships and communication, period.
No one can communicate. Literally,
nobody.
Like I jokingly say this, but part of me wants to do it. I always thought about creating another vertical in the coaching business. We get, you got like services or products, like marriage counseling and communication classes.
Seriously. And here's the thing is like, when you become a coach, you start seeing how much like the lessons that you learn with nutrition fitness translate into real life. Like, okay, if relationship with food is like having a relationship with a person, most people do not communicate. They avoid confrontation. They catastrophize things. Instead of coming in a place of curiosity and asking more questions and trying to learn, they judge and run away. And it just creates this escalated event that didn't even need to happen if you were just simply okay with feeling slightly uncomfortable for a short period of time, communicating and coming out of a place of curiosity. Yeah. So it's like you see how other areas of life kind of affect this. But the cool thing that I always talk about, and I don't know if you see this with your own clients, is that when they learn how to address confrontation in like nutrition fitness, like addressing your meanings, your actions, your relationship with food, that does translate in some way to the real life. Yeah. Have you ever seen that with your clients where like they fix their relationship with food and they're coming back with like, hey, like this is also fixing a lot of other things in my life?
Yeah. I there's a thing I talk with clients about all the time, that if you only lose weight, you did this wrong. Here's the reason why. When you address this is, let me take a step back. This is my issue with people who just like here's your macros and your workouts, is because you're not addressing the character, right? If someone had a shitty ex-boyfriend that cheated and was like just a bastard, and he's like, hey, take me back, I've changed. And you go, well, how? And they go, I don't know, I just have. Or their character hasn't changed. Their actions have not changed long-term, right? It's no different with this. This is why I think a good coach or a good person just going through this in general needs to change their character flaws. If you're not where you want to be, it's because your character is flawed, whether it be your relationship with food, your consistency, your self-deprecative behavior, your impatience, whatever it may be. These are character flaws. Not in a really negative judgmental way, but in an auditing way of going, okay, these are the things that need fixed. In the same, an analogy I've been using a lot lately is the foundation of a house touches every room. So these deeper levels of your character touch every facet of your life, your relationship, your money, your business, your friendships, your whatever, social circles, your dogs, whatever it may be. So when you start addressing your relationship with food, that's addressing now your relationship with your partner. When you address your emotional stability with food, you notice you're more emotionally stable when your dogs aren't behaving or in your life or whatever. It bleeds into everything else if you do it right. But if you're just like, no,
if you stay surface level, you're going to get surface level results.
Yeah.
Right. That's something that I always say when I'm talking to people, because most people, when they're jumping on a coaching call with me, they're like, let's talk about macros or fitness. And I'm like, that is not what you need. Like people aren't in their situation feeling like they're in a perpetual cycle of just crash and burn, and then having to get back up again and again. is not because you don't know the perfect protein or macro breakdown, or you don't have the perfect fitness program, which by no means does that ever exist. There's no such thing as perfect macro or fitness. But the reason why you're here is typically what's going on in between your ears. Your mindset, your perspective, your priorities, everything. And if you can fix that, now all what you said, the surface level stuff becomes extremely easy. But if you don't fix that, I always say this too, is like, when you fix the internal, the external will follow. When you fix the internal stuff, whether it's mindset, internal health, metabolism, whatever it is, the external will reflect that. But if you keep trying to change the external over and over and over and avoid the internal and avoid the confrontation and things like that, yes, you will see temporary results, but sooner or later that will halt. You'll feel like you're hitting your head up against the wall, and eventually you're going to be digging yourself into a deeper and deeper and deeper hole. You've got to fix the internal for you to have the external and also be able to keep that for life and add value to your life.
Well, the external is just a lagging indicator, right? When someone's getting upset about their external, you're in the past, you're 6 months behind already, right? This is my big thing when people go, oh, I feel like I should be further ahead. And like, not to sound like a dick, but if you should be further ahead, you would be further ahead.
Yep.
You know what I mean? It's almost like if someone's like, I have friends like in like, let's say business that will like launch a product and they're like, oh, my product's great. I don't know what's wrong. No one's buying it. I'm like, maybe it's not great. The market doesn't lie. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like someone's like, no, I put all this research and development into this thing. It should be selling. I go, but it's not. So maybe you're biased, Darren, you know, like, holy shit. But it's because the market doesn't lie. So if someone's not where they want to be, the market doesn't lie. It's because something's missing. It's not because you're the rare form of fat loss cancer no doctor's ever seen, where it's like, no, I follow everything to a T and somehow results don't happen. That violates laws of physics. Yeah. Cause and effect happen. Most people, though, with that, though, cause and effect, they don't realize how long it takes for the effect to land. Like if I take my pen and I throw it into the air, that's the cause. The effect is it coming back down. But most people in fat loss don't realize cause and effect is like a bullet being fired up in the air. What's going at like 1,400 feet per second the wrong way. And it's going to take a lot longer before that fucker comes back to the ground. And most people don't realize if your results right now are the last, let's say 6 or 12 months of your life. So if your last,
or even longer,
or longer, right. But some people will be like, well, it's been like 2 whole weeks. Why haven't I lost weight? I'm like, it's because it's 2 weeks in like the last year that you've been consistent. Like your results are on the surface are the most lagging indicator. So if you want to change your reality a year from now, you've got to get consistent now. We got to get perspective right.
100%. I also want to talk about something else. So you're talking about meanings, right? A lot of people attach certain meanings simply because they just don't have the information, right? And the reason why I'm bringing it up is because I like that was me too. Like I struggled with relationship with foods. Like I had an eating disorder majority of my life, starting from the age of 12. And I say this all the time. I didn't just have a poor relationship with food just because I thought it would be fun.
Right.
I relied on what I knew. And what I knew was diet culture BS. Like I grew up in the 90s where being stick thin and practically anorexic was in.
It was cool.
Right?
Gum's a meal.
and like, yeah, it was. And here I am with thick thighs walking around. I did not fit the status quo.
Thick thighs save lives. 100%.
Calvin calls it meat rockets, by the way. But
that meat rockets sound like something he would own. Like no, that sounds like male genitalia, not.
Oh no, that was how I was going
not
for.
Quads and hamstrings.
That was not what I was going for, listeners. I was trying to keep it appropriate. But well, the reason why I'm bringing that up is because I was scared. All these things were happening. I was thinking I was doing all the right things, but obviously I wasn't, because I was only getting worse. And I was just going off of what I knew, and I was scared. And you know what helped me get out of that is actually gaining more information. Because like when you don't have, we get really, really emotional about things that overwhelm us and what we don't know. What we don't know typically scares us. And how many times have you been scared of something, but then once you get to know it, you're like, oh, fuck, that's not even a big deal.
Anything in your life that moves the needle.
Yeah.
Completely.
Exactly. we're scared of what we don't know.
Mhm.
And so I always say this, knowledge is power. If you bring knowledge in, that allows you to make very empowering and objective decisions to help you get where you need to be, rather than constantly feeling like, I feel like I'm doing all the things, but nothing's happening. And now I'm feeling overwhelmed. And then eventually you're just not going to want to do it because nobody likes to feel that way.
Mm-hmm.
And so my question to you on this is, what are the biggest things that you do to help them gain knowledge, to help them feel empowered?
So I actually look at this from the others, like we'll call it the back door, because I agree with you. Knowledge is power, or applied knowledge is power. But I just made a big post about this. Most people don't need more knowledge. Most people, the more knowledge they look up, the more confused and overwhelmed they get, because you can find a PubMed study for every single bias you could have, or you can, whatever the case may be. So my thing is, because I agree with you, if someone doesn't have the knowledge, like I always say inner work with this kind of stuff is 2 parts: new information and uncomfortable action, in opposition of the old information, right? It's like when we got, like, let's say, my 2 girls both came from abusive owners. That's all they ever knew. So the brain's just like, this is just all I know. I could say, I love you. Hey, like, you're safe here. But until they have the uncomfortable action of not getting hit when they're used to getting hit, it's that point it starts to develop new neural pathways in the brain. Mm-hmm. So the thing is, for someone to truly change, you need new information, but then you need to implement that new information in opposition of the old self, right? If you're used to starving yourself because you think you have to lose fat, you can read all the science studies in the world. So to actually answer your question, here's how we get them the rock solid information is once we just say, here's the new information, we teach it, but then it doesn't stick until we have them do the scary actions. Mm-hmm. That goes against the old stuff that they have a lot of old history around. Because the thing people need to realize is, psychologically, your mind views your history as doctrine, right? It's why, like, think of it this way, like, if someone's born blind, that they're not missing out on anything. That's just what they're used to seeing. Mm-hmm. That's just their normal. They don't know any better. But if you take someone who was born blind and cure their sight, then it's like, I didn't even know this world existed. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So for a lot of people, all they've known is diet culture. All they've known is food obsession and anxiety and binge eating and emotional issues around food and coping and all this stuff. It's terrifying saying, hey, we're going to eat more. Hey, we're going to, those brownies that you can't, like, control yourself, we're going to have them every day. Like, it's terrifying, but it's the only way to rewrite the processes in the brain to where this is truly on autopilot. Here's why. I'm going to try to break this down really, really simply. So this is what I would label as neuropathway work. So now, but that doesn't help anyone. Like, that sounds cool, but here's the way that I view neural pathways in my Jared 3-year-old brain. A neural pathway in the brain is like a trail in the woods that people or deer or whatever have gone on. Like, everyone here has been hiking, and there is a clear path that it's like all the brush, but there is a clear dirt path, right, going into the woods. So you just follow the path. It's safe. You're not getting scratched, no bugs. It is like a dirt road in because of so many people have walked on it. That's where most people are at. You're in the complicated, scary woods and scared of food, anxiety around food, hiding your emotions with food, starving yourself, chocolate's bad, whatever. That's your old neural pathway. It's the safest. It's the most logical. I've been down this road a million times. I know what to expect. Then you have someone like you or me saying, hey, we actually got to add calories back. Hey, we're going to fix your relationship with food. We're going to give you other coping mechanisms to feel your emotions instead of hiding them with food. Whatever it may be. Hey, you don't have to work out 7 days a week. We're going to only work out 2 days a week because you don't have to chase it like you used to. Now you're forging your own path. That's fucking terrifying. But the thing is, it's the only way to make this work. Because the thing is, once you have a neural pathway, your brain protects it. That's what's cool. As soon as you quit walking on the normal familiar path, and you're like, all right, I'm just going to believe this stuff. It makes sense. And you start forging your own path. You're creating a new neural pathway. You do that a whole bunch. You start adding the foods back you were scared of. It's going to become easier. It's like facing a fear. It gets easier every time you do it. Start fixing your relationship with food. You start adding calories back if you were scared to. Whatever the thing is, well, now you're creating a new dirt road in the woods, and then the brain guards it. There's another saying in psychology is your brain, you don't need more time. You need more awareness. Mm-hmm. Because once you have irrefutable proof of the thing, your brain goes, oh, I guess I was wrong. As soon as you have irrefutable proof. It's why one of the things that we do from a tactical side for our clients is we realize what the new thing needs to happen, whether they have a horrible relationship with food, they've starved themselves, they're scared of sugar or whatever the case may be. We're doing the new neural pathway work. We're like, cool, we're going to add calories back. Cool, we're going to fix a relationship with food. Cool. We're going to change these meanings. That's terrifying. But as soon as we do that and they start seeing a little bit of progress, the brain goes, oh, I guess we were wrong. And it's like all the anxiety goes away because you have a new neural pathway with irrefutable proof. So what people listening should do is do this inner work, implement the action, which is what solidifies it. And then as soon as you see irrefutable proof, the brain literally goes, oh, this makes sense.
Yeah, 100%. Do you have your clients track their
For
food?
sure. Yeah, I mean, some don't, but most do. Yeah. Or there's my thing is there's also levels of food tracking. It's not like all the macros are fuck off. There's a spectrum of food tracking that we use.
Yeah, 100%. I think one of the reasons why people have a poor relationship with food, just from my own experience, is just people that overtrack. All they do is macro counting. And so they think it's a way of life. And it's like macro counting is probably one of the most optimal ways to track, which people are like, oh, that's fantastic. But it's like, yeah, it's optimal. It takes a lot of fucking brain power. And if you're constantly micromanaging every single little thing and thinking that that's life, like it's a tool in your toolbox. It's one of the very many tools that people don't realize. And so when you use a hammer, when you should be using a wrench, you're going to fuck shit up, right? Like you've got to get used to using different tools. So having a spectrum of tracking is going to allow you to be flexible and adaptable. And that does include just being able to trust your intuition and just use that. That is a tool as well.
Yeah.
But I wanted to ask a question. Okay. Because obviously you're in the realm of healing people's relationship with food. Most people in the industry are, and this is what I don't agree with, is when you are trying to heal your relationship with food, that requires you to not track, right? Like tracking is what's causing you to have a bad relationship with food. What is your opinion on that?
It's the meanings that are causing the issue. It's again, it goes back to the three big things: your meanings, your beliefs, and your actions. We use food tracking as a way to heal relationships with food all the time. Like, because here's the thing. So again, so much of this is how we're going about it. And the meanings that we're attaching with it. Like if you look at, let's say you take something like calorie tracking, just generally speaking, calorie tracking. If you look at that with the mindset of this is restrictive, this is overwhelming, this is overbearing and debilitating, and this is disordered. It doesn't matter what I tell you. If your meaning is that, you're going to have that be the case. Versus we need to look at it from the other side, where no, it's freeing. It's giving you less structure and some structure, but more freedom, right? There's all these different things. Think of it this way. If someone has a bad experience with, let's say, okay, we could go down this rabbit hole if you wanted, but I hear people talk about their marriages or relationships. They had a bad experience and they think all men are that way. Like, okay, case in point, like, let's say like someone who didn't have a very good first marriage or first relationship. But then they take those issues into the new one. Like, let's say like I got lucky. Shelby is my first relationship I ever had. And it was a home run, but imagine, let's say I had a really shitty ex-girlfriend and I let that set the tone for all the meanings in a romantic relationship. Oh, marriage is trapped. It is overwhelming. It is debilitating. It is codependent. It is arguably abuse. It is, no one would ever do it. There's never a reason to do that. Well, it doesn't matter. I could have the best human on the planet like my wife, but if that was the meanings I attached from a bad experience before, it doesn't matter what I get on the other side. It's like when some people look at money, like let's say money, people have a bad experience with someone who is wealthy and they go, oh, money's bad. Money makes people evil. Well, but I also know money is all, like, I know people who donate millions of dollars to charity and help, like Tony Robbins, I think fed like 30 million kids last year or something crazy, but like that costs money. But again, it's a meaning thing. So this is why we have to check the meanings and beliefs around it. Because the other thing is I like to argue with that is if someone goes, tracking is disordered and it's bad. I go, okay, let's play your theory. Then why isn't it for budgeting your finances? Calorie tracking is just budgeting with calories, but usually
baking is the same thing.
I was about to say it's baking as well. I made this big like cliffhanger post a while back and it sounded like I was bitching. I said, man, I hate this. It's, weighing everything, measuring this stuff, using weird scales and measuring cups, having to get everything to the gram, using special bowls, and having to be so monotonous and tedious around the numbers. But damn, these cookies are going to be so good. And everyone's like, oh, that's not the way I was thinking it, right? It's because it's a meaning thing. We change our opinions when it's calories versus baking cookies that you love or budgeting your finances. Disordered, responsible, like that doesn't make any sense. You know what I mean? So this is why we have to watch what the meanings are. And then you have to think, well, what meanings would serve me? What meanings and behaviors would serve me? And then we need to start doing those. So,
yeah, I 100% agree. Like Jerry and I are on the same page of this. Like a lot of time, there are some people that maybe taking some time to not track, or there's some people that shouldn't track, like some extreme cases, but most people would benefit from tracking because it is a form of empowerment. I know in my experience, when I just started tracking, I started creating objective awareness around my food. Before tracking, I would eat one cookie and freak the fuck out and then just think my whole day was ruined. But when I started tracking, I was like, oh, this cookie's only like 120 calories. Like that's actually really not that big of a deal. And then I just went straight on. Yeah. So many people, again, are making these emotional decisions or throwing specific meanings that are completely derailing the process simply because they just don't know. Sure. Yeah. And I think that saying having a poor relationship with food is, tracking is only going to make your relationship with food worse, extremely dogmatic. And I think in a lot of cases make it all worse, because we were talking about this before. Avoidance is never the answer. Right? Like, you saying, hey, I'm not going to track because it creates a bad relationship with food is just avoidance. Yeah. Right? And tracking your food is like we were talking about before, it's a tool. And I use this analogy a lot. You can use a hammer to build a beautiful house or tear it the fuck down. It's how you use it that matters. So if you tear a house down with a hammer, are you going to be like, oh, stupid hammer, throw it away, never going to use it again? That hammer's evil. Like, that doesn't make sense logically. That doesn't make sense at all.
One of my jiu-jitsu professors says a good artist doesn't blame the pencil. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Because here's the thing is, a lot this is otherwise the concept of exposure therapy wouldn't work, and that's a tried and true thing in psychology. But a lot of times you need to have, if you want to fix your relationship, let's say with tracking, wouldn't it be dope to be able to look at a set of numbers and not be freaked out? Like, you know, that's a personal thing, but this is why there's a spectrum of tracking. It's like a color spectrum. At what point does pink turn into burgundy, right? There's a huge spectrum. Because I see a lot of people who have a horrible relationship with tracking their food, it's because they're being a psychopath. They're tracking all the macros, no ranges to it. Like if they get 100, let's say 2,000 calories, they're good. 2,001 calories, they're a fucking failure who should never try this ever. Like it's that crazy extrapolation. Yeah. But this is why there's levels. Let's say like all macros, like, to be honest, most of our clients don't do all macros, like unless we're working with like a high performance athlete, right? But like, let's say tracking's overwhelming you. Okay, cool. Let's not do all macros. Let's just, what about protein and calories? Oh, that's overwhelming. What if we do just protein? You're only hitting like maybe 150 of anything, right? Like that you're not even doing in the thousands, you're doing in the hundreds. Oh, that's overwhelming. What if we just write down in a journal your food? One sandwich, one glass of wine, 2 pieces of pizza, chicken, right? Like but the problem is more people, the issue isn't the relationship with tracking food. It's they don't want to be held accountable for their actions. Yeah. That's a whole different conversation. That is a whole nother conversation. Well, you know what I'm saying? Or it's like, oh, that's too much. Take a picture of your food just and save it to a folder. Oh, that's triggering. Okay, well, maybe this is at the point you need to be triggered. One of my favorite psychologists I study, she's like, you need to be triggered. It's the only way to heal through things, because avoidance never made anything better. Yeah, like it's the same thing when we were a personal trainer. If somebody's like, oh, it's uncomfortable or it slightly hurts to go overhead, it's like, looks like we're going overhead more, because it sounds like it's like whatever makes you feel uncomfortable and or you're avoiding it is usually what we need to lean into most. Like, for example, one of the first things that we do with our clients is we have to create awareness. What are you currently doing now? So that way we can objectively make the right decisions. Because if you don't know what you're doing now, how do you know if what you're doing is going to actually work? Right. I'm like, okay, go ahead. And ideally, I want you to also track on the days that you really don't. I actually want you to track the most on the days that you really don't. And they're like, oh, but the weekends. I'm like, yeah. Because if you're feeling, that's where the problems are. If you're feeling resistance and you don't want to own your actions, that's where the issue, most of the issues are. Until you can sort through those emotions and objectively do it and not allow it to control your actions, like there's not much I can do. Yeah. We've got to see what's going on. Yep.
But here is like something that I also want to point out is, again, like where a lot of times people have meanings and things like that towards things. And sometimes it is just because of their own way of thinking and some of their characteristic flaws that they are trying to improve. And again, out of no judgment.
Mm-hmm.
But also we have to take in consideration, like with the analogy going back with a hammer, it's like you don't blame the hammer. You either blame whoever's wielding the hammer or whoever taught that person how to use that hammer.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes when people are like, I'm doing all the right things, I'm doing all these different stuff, or I have a poor relationship with food, it's like, consider where you got that information from.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you got it from Diet Culture Bullshit or Fitzbo-Jenny that has their own disordered eating patterns, but are hiding it with a smile, like, oh, I have a perfect relationship with food. By the way, here's my egg whites that taste like shit that I eat every single. I'm happy. It's like, trust me, they're not. Most fitness professionals are some of the most disordered out of all of us.
We get, I don't know if you guys get this, but because my whole message is so much about this deeper stuff, we get a lot of coaches and therapists who are like, I feel like a fraud because I'm telling people to have a great relationship with food and I am binge eating every other night.
Oh, 100%. We have a lot of coaches, and we have a lot of therapists too, because Christina on staff is basically, we call her professor because she's so smart. She has a master's degree in psychology. She actually specializes in like coaching trauma and relationship with food. And so we have a lot of therapists coming in to work with her to learn more about what she does. And yeah, it's 100%. They're like, I'm telling all these people that they should be doing these things, but I feel like a fraud myself and I need to fix myself to be able to create change. Like we can go in the whole, like we would be here forever about talking about how a lot of fitness professionals are just basically, when we become fitness professionals for a lot of people, it's because we see ourselves and other people and are trying to fix them. So a lot of people struggle through their own things. I did too. I did this as a young coach too. And a lot of times our own disordered eating patterns or disordered views of nutrition fitness, we actually push onto other people because you can only coach what is in your own scope of knowledge, your own reality, what you know. So a lot of times people, they don't work on the inner game stuff. They're going to pass it on to their clients. They're going to pass it on to their kids. They're going to pass it on to their significant other and all these different things. So they got to fix themselves that inner game, like you're talking about before, to be able to actually impact anything. Like you are the foundation to everything that you achieve. Just like you were talking about before, the house. I love that analogy, by the way.
It touches
everywhere. It's
even upstairs. Like it doesn't matter. It touches every room.
Touches every room. You're the foundation to everything that you achieve. So if you are struggling with all these different things, this inner game stuff, trust it is affecting everybody around you and everything that you want to achieve. If you're working on 10%, everybody that you love is getting 10% of you. Everything that you're trying to achieve is getting 10%. So ipso facto, if you want to achieve everything that you have in life, be the person that you want to be and live the life that you want, you have to fix your inner game shit first. And then everything else will follow. It's the same thing, internal, external. It's not just how your body is, but everything that you put into the world and all your goals, that directly affects that too. So
one of the things that, because some people will give me pushback on that, they're like, oh, well, I'm like the top producer in my company, or I've done this with my kids. I go, with all my issues, so it doesn't affect. I go, well, just imagine what that would have been if you would have fixed this.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, well, like, cool. Like, yeah, you crushed it, but what if that was 10% of what you could have done?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And also it's like, okay, yeah, you could have done that, but like, what did you have to do? What did you have to sacrifice? Like if you have poor relationship with food and you're always anxious about everything, and then now you're always focusing on that, your mind is being on that. Now you're not putting all your full attention to your kids and things like that. It's like, it's how you do it matters. You can choose how you do it. It's like trying to run a mile. You can try to run a mile in a hot sunny day and it fucking sucks. In the sand, let's do it in the sand too. That sucks. Or you can jump in a Ferrari with air conditioning on, your sunnies and favorite music, and be there in like a couple of seconds. It's like you're still traveling a fucking mile. How do you want to do it? Do you want to take it the hard way, or do you want to make it easy? Like I'm going to choose the Ferrari. So fix their inner game issues, and now your life becomes a Ferrari type of experience. You're still getting the same outcome, but it's a hell of a lot more enjoyable. Like you don't have to be fucking miserable all the time. I think that's another thing, is that like everybody from everything that they've seen online and diet culture bullshit thinks that dieting and the way that both Jared and I do this is that we have clients that Yes, some of them do want to lose fat. Yes, some of them do want to improve their internal health. Yes, some of them want to build muscle and perform better. Dieting is a structured way of eating to create an outcome, right? So whenever somebody is trying to diet, create a structured way of eating to create an outcome, they think it has to be miserable. Mm. It has to make me feel like I'm trapped in a prison. It has
back to be meanings and beliefs.
Exactly. And so that's why nobody even wants to try to do it anymore. Mm-hmm. Like if you're like, hey, like I'm struggling right now, and every single time I create change, it fucking sucks, and I don't see another way out of it. Now they're giving up, even though logically mm-hmm. they know in their head, if I just eat a little bit better, if I just move a little bit more, if I just have a better relationship with food and all these different things, all my problems would be solved. Yep. They still choose staying where they're at in their comfort zone because they don't see another way out.
Well, a lot of that too isn't even conscious, because the thing is your brain doesn't care if you're happy. It only cares about self-preservation. And the way the brain works, which is why this is why you can't believe everything you think and feel to be true, is your brain views it as, oh, well, this is where I've been the past 10 years. Yeah, I'm not happy, but I know I'm not going to die. And somehow this weirdly feels like home. So the thought of being happy and not struggling is terrifying, and I might die. So let's not touch that stove that might be hot. Mm-hmm. So exactly. that's why people sabotage. That's why people stay, why comfort zones are not fun. But nothing good has ever come from a comfort zone either, if we think about it logically. But that's the battle, the logical versus the emotional. But then your awareness has to be live during all of that. Otherwise you're just on autopilot and going to find your way drifting back to where you came from, which is struggle. 100%.
I also would say, I think from just coaching, I'm sure you've seen this too, is that a lot of times people, it's just lack of self-belief. Mm-hmm. There's only so many times where you can fall short from something and just be like, well, I guess I'm just this person. I'm never going to create change. And even if you give them all the tools in the world and you're like, if you just do this, right, you will see the other side. People will self-sabotage that simply because they are stuck in this belief system that I am just this person, because they have undeniable proof over a period of time. And we both know it's just because they've been just doing the wrong things. Mm-hmm. Even if they have the opportunity to create change, they don't take it because it scares them. They don't think it's ever going to happen. So why even try? Why even go through this pattern of losing weight only to gain it back and feel miserable again? So they sabotage themselves day number one, even before getting started, because again, they're stuck in that box that they put themselves in.
Yeah.
So it's a tough thing out there. That's why you have people like Jared and myself trying to break that pattern and teach you that this shit doesn't have to be fucking miserable.
Have to be miserable. That's
it doesn't. It's a tool like anything else. You can use it to trap yourself in your own little prison, or you can use it to live your best life. We've seen it time and time again with our own clients and ourselves as well. It can be a tool to help you live your best life, but it's how you use it that matters. So once you learn how to use it for you specifically and fix that inner game stuff, everything else will follow. Trust. It does.
Completely.
I do have another question.
Okay.
Oh, I lost it.
No, you didn't.
Yeah, I did. My ADHD brain came in.
80 of the HDs. Yeah, I get it.
Well, here's our conversations, guys. It's pretty much Jared and I right here.
Essentially.
Yeah. We think of something and then we forget.
Yeah. But they're usually much longer than this. So.
Yeah, I know.
You were this close. You were like, all right, I might ask you this one question at the end, but I don't,
do you remember the question? Because I think I talked. I did talk to you. No, I said 2 questions.
And we touched on both of them.
Oh, I remember. Because I wanted to have this honest conversation. We've never had this conversation before. Now I remember, guys. Sorry, my ADHD brain. It kicked back in. Like, I got it now. I wanted to have this conversation because we've never discussed this ourselves. So I figured it'd be a really cool discussion because it kind of came up in my own life. And I've been thinking about this a lot. Is the idea of like, what is your opinion on your honest opinion about the whole body positivity? Because
we did talk about that. Yeah.
Because like you're in the realm of fixing relationship with food issues, and a lot of times in that realm, that is directly towards not tracking body positivity, like blah blah blah, and things like that.
Sure.
So, what is your honest opinion of body positivity?
So let me take a step back. I think anything on any extreme with any stance is going to be bad, right? This is why, like, whether it be political or like, it doesn't matter. Anytime we take, it's like even like politics, the far right is fucking assholes. The far left are fucking assholes. Like, no matter where you, even like, it doesn't matter. Anything good also has a dichotomy. And usually the people who are on the far one side screaming at the other, or on the far this side screaming at the other, are not the ones in the right. Mm-hmm. Here's the thing. Anyone could make a shaming stance on anyone who has a desire. Like, as in, so like right now, like you'll hear with the body positive movement, like lots of fat shaming. If you want to, like, if you would like to get a little healthier, there are going to be people who are screaming, you're fat shaming. But on the other side, there's fit shaming like no one's business. Someone who's like, wow, I'm going to die early. I want to change my, or I'm sorry, like, or then you got people on like one side of the spectrum saying, oh, if you want to get healthy and live longer and be a better example to your kids, that's bad. Now they're fit shaming. It could be the same thing with money. It could be the same thing in having, like, let's say I want to have a partner and get married. There's going to be someone that's like, you're shaming us who want to stay single. Like, you could have any polarizing stance on anything. Mm-hmm. So my stance is no, there's going to be people that are not going to be happy no matter what you decide to do. Now, here's the thing with body positivity, though. I think it started off well and it's turned into something a little more polarizing. I love the fact that, like, you and I both grew up in the 90s where it was like women had to be like 120 pounds, size 00. And
thigh gap.
If you could not back a truck through a thigh gap, you're a fat piece of shit.
Yeah.
Like, so I love the fact that there are like models of all sizes. I love the fact that there is the stigma around, oh, you have to be a size 2 is away. I love the fact that there is no magic size. And I agree with that. I think someone's goals should be predicated on what they themselves want. If someone wants to be fit, great. If someone wants to be wealthy, great. If someone wants to like be dad bod, great. If someone, whatever, this is about a personal decision you want for your life. Mm-hmm. So for someone else to say your desires around your body are bad and making me feel bad, and I'm going to shame you for it, I think is very dogmatic. Mm-hmm. But also it's one of those things where I think the body positivity movement has moved to a place where like healthy at any size, I don't agree with that. No. Healthy at any size is like saying healthy at any stage of cancer, where it's like, well, hang on. Like, no, if you weigh 400 pounds more than what you should weigh, it is evidence-based proof that you are going to die of heart disease and cancer or all these other issues where healthy at any size is not true. Now, I don't think there's, like you said, a magic size where everyone should fit into this societal box, but I think for someone to say, oh, I can be healthy at any size. No, you can decide to live your life however you want. And if you're happy, great. Mm-hmm. But do not say healthy at any size, because it's blatantly not true when your heart valves are shutting and where your heart rate can't go up a flight of stairs without you damn near having a stroke. And you're going to die 15 years early, leaving your kids stranded because you weighed way more than what you should and didn't prioritize your health. Yep. Right. Like, I had a client the other day sign up for coaching because she said if she didn't, she'll go into organ failure. That is not healthy at any size. Mm-hmm. Right. So this is why, from the coaching standpoint, there's no judgment around it. I'm not shaming anybody, but to say if someone wants to better themselves, or someone like us create content around people who want to better themselves, that is fat shaming. I disagree with that completely. Now, if I'm saying you're a piece of shit because you're fat, then okay, that is a little fat shaming, but just because someone wanting to change their life, or someone like you or me giving advice on how to do it the right way, I don't agree that saying that's fat shaming, I think is completely dogmatic.
Oh yeah. 100%. And like you said before, anything polarizing is just, there's no room for it. There's no black and white in nutrition fitness. There are some simple things, like you do need to eat food, you do need to drink water. Like, there's some simple facts, but it's a whole broad spectrum of gray. And then now you have to bring into the fact that we're not coaching robots, we're coaching people. Yeah. And that's a whole lot of fucking gray. So you can't, like, people do these polarizing things, especially in social media, because it's a marketing strategy. It gets attention, things like that. But I think it does more harm than good. Sure. But I want to go back to like what you said before of how it's not our job to define what somebody wants. They get to define success, because success looks different to anybody. And it's not our job to label if that is right or wrong. And I think both you and I can agree that we don't even want to do that. We just want people to be healthy and happy and live their best life.
That's all we're doing.
That's literally all we want to do.
That is it.
So if that looks like different than everybody else, or like against the status quo or anything, like, we don't care. We just want you to be happy. Mm-hmm. But what I'm not a fan of is making decisions based off of how you think and you feel all the time. How you think and you feel is important, but it's not everything. right? I can feel.
Well, they're two different things.
Yeah.
Right. They need to be held space for, but that doesn't mean they need to take the driver's seat, and it doesn't mean they're accurate. Right. Like that's the thing is, I think we don't want to suppress what we think and feel. Like that's not okay. But just because we think it or feel it doesn't mean it's true or doctrine, and it needs to be, an action needs to be changed.
Yeah.
The way that the analogy I use for this, and because everyone we work with has kids for the most part, is I said, like, let's say you have a 5-year-old, like little fucking tantrum terrorist 5-year-old, and we go, hey, and I'll ask the mom, or I'll go, hey, imagine if you everything that little Timmy said was thought you had to make true. Sissy hit me. She didn't. Okay. You guess you hit your brother. Mommy, you're stupid. You know what? I guess mommy is stupid. I don't want to go to school. Okay. No school for you. If you had a 5-year-old, if you had to make true everything they thought and feel, it would be pure chaos. Right. Right. Why is it's no different when your inner child flips out? Because again, we had this conversation around old conditioning, drifting to what's most familiar, because your brain wants you to stay in suffering because it's familiar, all that. You're going to think some crazy shit. When a person is trying to detox from drugs, getting high sounds like a really good idea. You know what? I can't be productive until I do one more hit. It's going to be worth it to go to work, whatever. Like this kind of stuff, anytime you change your life is not comfortable. And the old self or the inner child is going to have some things to say. Yep. It's not going to feel comfortable. So if you believe everything you think and feel, you're literally fucking yourself from the very start.
Yeah, 100%. It's like, you can think and feel all you want that the sky is purple, but it doesn't mean that it makes it purple. Yeah. It's blue, guys. Totally. So it's the same thing with this. Is like, you can think and you feel that you are going to be healthy at any size, but like, I'm a fan of creating objective decisions. Okay. Do you want to objectively be healthy? Okay. Let's pull out blood work. Or a Dutch test or anything like that. Let's go to the doctor and ask them.
Well, I would argue, objective. Like, what are we defining as healthy?
Well, that's too. That too. The healthy is different to everybody. But like, if somebody's like, hey, like, I want to come to you for longevity. I want to prevent disease. I want to take that preventive approach. It's like, okay, I'm not going to go off of your measurements, pictures, and weight, because you can be unhealthy overweight. You can be unhealthy underweight. Like, we've got to objectively look at what's going to define whether or not you are or are not healthy. Right. And that might look differently to everybody. Right. And then you have to go into what do you want in life? How do you want to live? Because how I deem success is going to be completely different than you, Jared, to anybody else. So it's like shaming somebody for wanting something for their life. It's never the answer. Everybody has the right to do that. But like, even then, you can think and you feel all you want, but we have to bring in the facts and allow you to make an educated decision for yourself.
I think if anything in that world, it should change from healthy at any size, should be acceptance at any size. Cool. Yeah. If you want to be whatever you want to be, that's dope. But like anything else, don't impress that upon me. Right. Exactly. Like that's the biggest issue is don't push that on. Like, imagine if how crazy this would be if it was anything else. Imagine I live in a 2-story house. So imagine if I picket fenced and screamed at the top of my lungs and protested to people who have ranch style houses that no, 2-story houses are the way. You're shaming us 2-story houses only staying like that's, or if it was the other way around, or people like me who doesn't have kids and have dogs versus people who hate dogs and have kids. Like, it doesn't make any sense. It's illogical. So this is why live your life how you want and stop being so dogmatic about people who just want something different than you.
Yeah. And this dogmatic thinking isn't just to the general public. It's also applied to fitness professionals. Like, how many times have we been told, hey, if you're a fitness professional, you have to have a 6-pack abs. It's like, I don't wanna. I used to have it. I felt like fucking shit. I micromanaged every single little thing in my life. My job is to create a better relationship with food, with and fix internal health and help them live their best life. If I'm trying to get 6-pack abs, I ain't gonna be doing that. So I'm not going to fall into that dogmatic thinking that all fitness professionals who have 6-pack abs be ripped in order to be effective. That's not true at all. If you want that, that's great. There are some people genetically that can do it and feel great every single day. That's also fantastic for them. But like, for me, I don't want to fucking do that again, ever. That was the worst thing in the world. Right. So it's like, again, leave the dogmatic thinking at the door. Everybody gets to define success and how they want to live their life. And all we're here to do is just facilitate that. That's it. All right. Well, Jared, I appreciate you coming on this podcast.
I appreciate you having me. This has been dope.
This conversation, as per usual, is always fun.
As per usual.
As per usual. But we are running up on the end of the time. So Jared, I wanted to take a second for you to tell people where they can find you, how they can contact you.
So if you're into like deeper stuff like this, and if you're listening to this podcast, you should probably listen to mine, Dieting from the Inside Out, on all platforms, YouTube, all of the things that podcasts touch. If you aren't familiar with my stuff and you want to just like let me populate in your Instagram and TikTok feed, I'm at Real Jared Hamilton. And that's really where I'm active most days. And my DMs are always open. So just follow me on Instagram at Real Jared Hamilton. And yeah, that's about it. So
beautiful. And I'll include all these lists, the links and everything like that below in the description, so you guys can get a hang of that. But Jared, as always, best friend, appreciate you. Thank you for coming on, dropping some knowledge bombs.
Of course.
Definitely going to have you on here again, because we could literally have so many conversations. Guys, you should hear our conversations all the time. Sometimes I feel like some of our conversations, we should just always put a mic on and just put it on sometimes.
Probably.
Yeah. We go so many rabbit holes and get deep with this shit. So
yeah.
But thank you guys again for listening to another episode. Appreciate you all coming out with another one next week. Talk to you then.